romantasy is the new word that has been coined for books that fall into both the fantasy and the romance genre, and they kind of combine the best of both worlds, and they are all the rage right now, and I can definitely understand why, because romantasy books really make you feel alive. The characters are so captivating, the plot lines and the political intrigue is so layered and intricate, and the world building is really, really stunning. So if you are looking for a book to really get into that escapism mindset, kind of put the real world to the side and really dive into a really intricately woven world, then picking up a romantasy might be for you. It is storytelling at its best. And this week I'm going to be reading The Hurricane Wars. This is by Thea Guanzon. This is the new highly anticipated romantasy that everyone's been talking about, and I am so glad I'm finally getting my hands on it. This story is about two people who are enemies, and I think it evolves into the enemies to lovers trope. This is about Taliesin and Alaric, and they are opposite in this war that's raging in their world, and they also have opposing types of magic. She has light magic, he has shadow magic, and they're not really supposed to combine. But one day when they meet, and they do see that when they put their magic together, it actually creates an even greater magic that could be used to help fight against this new enemy that's threatening their kingdom. They kind of need to make the decision of whether they're going to join forces and combine that magic, or if they're going to remain enemies. It sounds so interesting, and it has every element of a romantasy that I love, which is a little bit of romance, a lot of plot, a lot of political intrigue, magic as well. So a little bit of everything. I'm going to spend the next couple of days being cozy, just sitting and reading and annotating. The weather has been gloomy and rainy, which is the perfect mood to read this type of book. Also do some baking, maybe make some tea, just have a couple of cozy days diving into this book. I'm going to be sharing thoughts throughout. I won't share any spoilers, but I will show you some annotations and quotes that I'm going to highlight in the book, and I just can't wait to dive right in. a few days later now, and I'm about halfway through the Hurricane Wars. I am tabbing and annotating it as well, just to keep track of some of the character traits and plot lines that are happening in this book. But so far, I would say it has been a very mediocre reading experience for me, which I'm sad to say because I've been looking forward to reading it for so long, but it just took a little while for me to get into. I didn't necessarily feel that initial spark and that, you know, compelling need to like pick it up at all times of the day. The first 150 pages were hard for me to get through, and I think part of that is because the author's writing style is a little bit clunky at times, and you know, take this with a pinch of salt because it is her debut novel, but it feels like she sat next to a thesaurus while writing this, and that's because every other word is like a 15-letter word, and I don't always think using big words necessarily makes your writing more profound or more interesting or more analytical. I don't think it's always necessary. So that part of the book has been interesting. And for the first chunk of the book, you don't really get any of the romantic aspects of the book. You are introduced to the two characters that you think are going to be paired up, but they don't really have that many interactions and they don't have any of those romantic connections. But about halfway through now, I'm starting to get more of the enemies to lovers vibe. There's a little bit of a forced proximity type of trope coming into play as well. So it is now picking up a little bit, and I am finding myself a bit more invested in what's going on. The magic system is also very intriguing. They are like flying around on these like magical boats in the sky. I think that is a very cool element of the book. And then some of the other layers that are being introduced are also starting to pick up a little bit more interest. And so I do think there is hope for this book. I do think the second half will hopefully, you know, pick up from here and have some cool elements come into play. So I am holding out hope for this book. I'm going to power through some of it now and see where we go with the rest of the story. a little while later now, and I have finally finished The Hurricane Wars. I'm gonna give this book about 3.5 stars, maybe even 3 after I've let it marinate a little bit. I don't think I'll be going any higher than that. It turned out to be a very mediocre reading experience for me, and I think that's why it took me so long to get through. Usually it doesn't take me this many days or this many sittings to get through a book, especially like a romantasy that is usually action-packed and very plot forward. But for some reason this one, I just didn't feel the spark. I couldn't really get myself into it. I do think some of the positive points are, you know, some of the world building and some of the magical elements, but I do think it was a little underdeveloped. I also didn't really connect to the romantic aspects of this book, so I was so excited about it being an enemies to lovers trope, and it's one of my favorites, but I don't think this book did it that well. I mean, in the beginning you get very heavy enemies vibes, but then it almost changes quickly to lovers too quickly for me. I think they begin to have feelings for each other and feel attracted to each other without a lot of development and, you know, interaction in between. It was a little bit too instant for me, so I did not enjoy that aspect. Usually these are a little bit more slow burn, or the ones that promise to be slow burn. Usually have more pining and more interactions in between, but I didn't get that in this book. So that's one of the reasons I didn't connect to the romance element. And then I also felt like it was a little bit too linear and one-layered. So at the beginning of the book, you get a lot of world building and a lot of different characters and people you think that are going to stick around as secondary characters and have like a much bigger world than, you know, what it actually turns out to be. So I think from that point of view, it was a little bit underdeveloped in that sense as well. And you just didn't get as many of those side characters that kind of add to the whole atmosphere of the book. So yeah, overall, I would say just a very mediocre reading experience. I will say, however, if this is going to be one of your first or like the first 5 romantasy books that you read, I could see how this could be a really enjoyable experience, especially if you're kind of new to this genre. Then give it a go. I think you might like it. It's a nice, easy kind of lead into this genre. But if you're a seasoned romantasy reader like me, then you might find it a little bit underwhelming. And I hate to say that because I really was looking forward to it. I'm not sure if I will read the next book. I haven't made my mind up yet. It wasn't so terrible that I'm like, I definitely won't read it, but I'm also not that excited. Like after I finished Fourth Wing and could not wait for the next book to come out, which is next week, and I know I'm going to be dying to get to it, I don't have those same feelings for this book. So I'm not sure yet if I'm going to read the next books that come in this series, but so far I have found this to be really underwhelming, and I'm going to give it just about a 3 or 3.5 stars. Thank you for watching and going on this reading journey with me and spending a couple of cozy days. I will catch you in my next video.